The educator Dr. Maria Montessori once said,
The child developing harmoniously and the adult improving himself at his side make a very exciting and attractive picture.
Welcome to Montessori Education with me, Jesse McCarthy, where we talk raising children and educating students while bettering ourselves right alongside them. Hello, everyone out there. This month marks Maria Montessori's 150th birthday, as she was born on August 31, 1870. Now, instead of lecturing at you about Montessori's life in that kind of traditional school fashion that too many children still have to sit through today, I'm instead going to share a conversation around her radical approach to learning. But, Montessori education can mean a million different things to a million different people. Even among self-proclaimed Montessorians, there are battles over who really understands the method or who really gets it. But instead of jumping into that hot mess, we already have enough drama in the world to deal with, I will be talking with Ruchira Fernando, better known as the Montessori Zen Master, or at least that's what I call him. And I'm pretty certain many of his students' parents feel the same about him. Now, in a way, Ruchira embodies core elements of Montessori, the heart of it, as you'll hopefully soon hear. So he promotes and lives himself traits like independence and empathy, and he has a deep respect both for individuality and community. And further, he helps children gain knowledge that can actually be applied in the real world. I would say that's versus what too many children and even us back in the days, many of us, had in conventional schooling. So, memorized information that's just really destined to be forgotten after a test is done. Now, in terms of who Ruchira is as a person, and he is one fascinating guy, I will just quickly give you a few relevant details. So he was trained in Montessori at the primary, elementary, and adolescent levels. So basically for children ages 2.5 all the way to 18 and beyond. In all, he has been in Montessori for close to 15 years as a partner in founding a school, as a 3 to 6 and 6 to 9 teacher, and now as an elementary director out at a wonderful program in Arizona named CREO. Now, Ruchira has a unique past as well, like before Montessori. He was born in Sri Lanka, where he grew up during the nation's devastating civil war. Part of that time, strangely enough, he managed to be a child actor, and later, as a young man, a star rugby player. So he's big, burly, and angry, as he would put it. Yet, if you met Ruchira today, anger is the last thing that would come to mind. He is actually one of the calmest, sweetest individuals I've ever met. Now, our discussion was originally supposed to be on Montessori Elementary, and a good portion of it is. But it became something much more overall, and that's why I've held on to it for this month's 150th anniversary, because we actually recorded back in early March 2020. This is right before COVID hit big. So I'm hoping you find Ruchira's words as valuable as I did, and that you gain something that can be applied, in your own life. So whether that's at home or at school or in one of the, the new pods or co-ops that are popping up around the world. All right, with that little intro, here we go. Well, Ruchira, nice to have you with me. I'm excited to be sitting down chatting with you.
Likewise, Jesse. It's good to see you again.
Cool. Yeah, I know. So what was that? That was less than a month ago we saw each other. All right, out in Seattle. Yeah.
That's right.
So as I often do on this show, instead of just, getting into some deep biography or something, just let's hop in. What's on your mind? Like, what's a recent thing in your experience that just has been fun with the children, with yourself, whatever, that I think the audience might enjoy?
There's so many things happening in our classrooms on a day-to-day basis. So that's really hard to even come up with, but let's see. There's two things I would like to talk to you about, actually.
Good.
One is a couple of weeks ago, about 4 children was interested in doing a long division work. We have this material called racks and tubes. It's such a fun work for them. This work goes all the way to the millions, and you can divide it from a number of thousands. So we have four
Isn't it?
different,
I was
yeah.
just gonna say, Ruchira, it's funny because you're talking about division and saying, oh, to the millions. And I'm thinking now being in Montessori, when you say this, I'm like, oh, I love it. I can see the children just love it. But isn't it funny? I don't know what this is for you, but do you remember when you were in school, like division to the millions doesn't sound, at least in junior high and high school, earlier I liked it, but does that sound exciting?
That was a scary thing for me when I was a
Okay.
child that
Okay.
age. Oh yes, because
Yeah.
it was given with these big textbooks, and we had to do it
Yeah.
abstract. It was never appealing to me, as I recall. But because of these concrete representatives, they're color coded, so you always know the unit board is green, the tens are going to be blue, the hundreds are going to be red, and then again, when we go to the thousand family, we start with the units with the green board. So these colors, these materials, our children have seen since primary, so it's
Yeah.
not new to them either. So it's just revisiting these concepts, but with much more confidence and with more joy because of um, because they're so familiar with it.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting was so this group of second graders, how old are they? I want to say they're around 7.5, 8 years old. They wanted to do a division work, and there were five of them, but there's only four boards. So one was standing and looking very disappointed because he can't be part of this exciting journey. So I just walked up to them and said, "Hey, by the way, you can go to the next classroom and borrow a red board and call it the 10,000 board."
Mm.
And I can all of a sudden see they turned around, they looked at me, something clicked in their head, and they
Mhm.
were like, "Really?" I was like, "Absolutely." And then I remember one child, "Can we go as far as we want?" I'm like, "If you're ready for it, go for it." And the
Yeah.
next thing is they go and borrow all four boards. Now this division problem is going to the hundred thousands.
Oh man.
And they borrowed
I
the
love it.
racks from, yeah, they borrowed the racks from the other low elementary classroom, and they moved the numbers to a trillion number.
Oh,
So now there's
yeah, it's
eight
crazy.
children. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
eight children.
Ruchir, what's crazy is like you're telling this story, and what's wild about it is just the beginning, which was kind of like just this side issue that there's five children excited and there's only four boards. The story you're telling is about how they want to do more, but the fact that 5 8-year-olds, around 8-year-olds, are excited to do division problems.
Yes.
Like most normal people out there, 8-year-olds are not normally doing division, and surely not into the 100,000, right?
Right.
So
And
it's just wild how the side issue is kind of like, oh yeah. So anyways, I love it. I love it.
I mean, that's the beauty of Montessori, right? We recognize the child has this capacity, this desire to work. For them, working is understanding who they are in a deeper level. And when
Yeah.
you give it to them in a right way at the precise time, there's this joy that comes with it. And
Yeah.
then wanting to work in small groups, wanting to do bigger work. I mean, it's all collaborated in the classroom within the lesson. So
Yeah.
that's why this work makes so meaningful and joyful and fun and spontaneous.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Ruchira, because sometimes I'll get parents that say, well, Montessori seems too individualistic and it's too focused on independence, or like it's overly that. And what I don't
Yes.
think, and I think sometimes that's because people are focused on Montessori in the preschool years. And in that years, as Montessori saw, children actually want to do more independent work, right? But as the children grow up at this stage, it definitely seems per their nature. And I mean, I'm curious with your experience, but they're much more interested in doing group work. I mean, they still love their independence and developing independence, but I want to be around others and doing work. So there's a change in kind of the developmental stage of a child. Have you seen that? Do you agree with that? Or am I just, making stuff up here? I mean, I know the answer from
No,
my own experience, but I'm curious yours.
no, you're spot on, Jesse. Children in the first plane of development, basically from the age of 0 to 5, 5.5, what we call in Montessori the absorbent mind. So what's happening is all the information the child is absorbing is creating a blueprint in their brain. So they're compartmentalizing everything internally. So therefore, working in almost like a bubble is very natural for them. That's why sharing is such a hard concept for the children at that age, because they're not ready for that idea.
Yeah.
So that's why work is individualized in primary, because it supports the growth process for that child. But also in primary, towards the end, what we call the passage to abstraction, which happens around age 5.5, 6, you're going to start seeing these children are more extroverted. They want to talk a lot. They enjoy hanging out their peers. They want to do work outside. So that's their body, that's their whole existence telling, I am ready to move out of this environment because it doesn't serve me anymore. And then once they come to elementary, the one of the biggest things that happens to them is they started realizing, oh, there's a world outside my immediate family. My friends
Yeah.
become such an important thing. So, for example, if a friend is wearing one bracelet, his friend wants to wear five. So they want to imitate their peers. They admire them, but they want to do it different, or they would wear 3, 4, 5 different types of styles. So there's this natural desire to be part of a larger community. So
Yeah.
that's why in elementary, our classrooms are set up in a way that our work is done in small groups, because also they become very socialized in a way that they want to talk, they want to share, they want to listen, they want to hear. So when we give these lessons to like 3 to 5, 4 children, you can take a step back and you can allow them to have this conversation, come up to
Yeah.
conclusions by reasoning with each other.
No. And Ruchira, when I visited your classroom, I think that was maybe the end of last year, that definitely struck me. So, I mean, first of all, I loved observing. I told you this already, but this was, for everybody out there listening, such a wonderful time sitting in Ruchira's classroom. But one thing that really struck me was the group activities that you're talking about. And I wanted to raise one example because you had the little white cubes, for those that
Yes.
aren't out there, Ruchira. So in the elementary classroom, these white cubes, can you just briefly describe what they are, what I was looking at, these children using them?
Yes, Jesse. So there are two types of white cubes. One group is they're 1 centimeter cubes, and the other ones are 2 centimeter cubes. So this is how we teach our young children, age maybe 8, the concept of volume. So again, this is a prerequisite lesson that's done in primary from a very sensorial way. So the children are exposed to geometric solids and bases. So with this idea in mind, we introduce the children that, we're just going to measure this shape, but actually we're going to look what's inside. How are we going to measure the space inside? And we introduce these cubes as the unit of measurement. So until then, they have measured length using inches, centimeters, yards, and so forth. So they have an understanding for various things. We use various units to measure. So what happens is with this measurement, they recreate a replica of the material next to it using the cubes, and they basically count the cubes. And then we use the measurement as the unit of measurement.
Okay. So as I'm sitting in the classroom, guys, so I look over and there must have been, I would say 3 or 4 young boys, different ages, but, around the same age, but maybe 1 or 1.5 years apart. And they are just excitedly counting up or stacking up, as you basically described right there, using these white cubes to go around the classroom and just measure different things, whether it was a book or is there some other material on the table. And they were just all excitedly counting them. And this is the type of thing that was just, it seemed spontaneous to me. I don't know what exactly was going on in the classroom at the time, but as compared to, like, say, a traditional school, random children just getting together and working out problems like this and trying to measure things around the classroom, it just seems so unheard of. So sitting there, it really struck me. And then one thing that was so fascinating, and I don't know if I told you this, but when they were together, one of the kids, there was you had a scale, and I saw one of the children thought he put one of the cubes on there and weighed it, and then thought, well, if each one of these weighs this amount, and he was trying to understand and explore with weight. So he went from measurement, in terms of length or volume to weight. So I found that just so fascinating that that's the type of exploration that's occurring both in groups, and then you got the child's independent mind who's like, I wonder how much this would weigh, and then if we add them together, then you have this weight. So I have to imagine this is not an abnormal experience for you, but sitting in there, it was so wonderful to see. So.
That's very good observation, Jesse, because as you know, Montessori teachers, we're not all about just giving lessons. Observation is a very, very important part of our daily work. So, for example, when you saw that child putting the cubes to weigh how much it weigh, to me as an observer, that's my indication, oh, this child is ready for some lessons how to do measurements through weighing things.
Yeah.
So just watching their actions, they truly speaks really loud to us what they want and what they're interested in the given moment. So as much as we're involved with them and much as we give lessons through observations is how we really recognize what hurdles and what challenges this child is showing us. And at the same time, what they're excited and interested in, want to learn more about.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say challenges. So I'm very curious. I wanted to ask you this too. So when I was in there, now I would say I'm an abnormal observer because I'm not meticulous, but I write a lot. And
yes.
And I kind of have this statement. It's kind of funny as I say, I'm only mean for money. I tell people this. So I normally when I'm talking to somebody, I say the very positive things. And I have to say in Ruchira's class, like it literally was almost all positive. I had such a good experience that it's a rare thing, but I really enjoyed it. But this one thing occurred and I wanted to get your take. So, a lot of parents and even teachers, they're like, well, it seems like a lot of freedom in the classroom. What happens when a child's acting up? And I got to tell you, I saw you go over. So again, it was with those white cubes. But one of the boys, when a child's done measuring something, then they're going to put all these cubes back in this container and then this wooden container, bring it somewhere else to go measure something else. And the child was just dropping all of these white cubes into the container. Like it was just kind of like unthoughtful, but it was just, like a normal child this age, just throwing them all in there. And I saw you and I was like, wonder what he's going to do. And Ruchira comes walking over, this casual, like Zen-like man, but you came over and you had a very firm look on your face. And you said very quietly, I don't remember your exact words, but it was something like, when we place these in here, we have to be very careful with what we're doing because they can chip. Or it was something so casual. It wasn't like, oh my God, be more careful. What do you live in a pigsty? It wasn't anything like that, but it was firm. So I'm curious, how do you, and it worked. I mean, it seemed like the child had a lot of respect for you. And he, after that, he was very calmly putting them in. It didn't seem like he was upset that he got reprimanded or corrected or anything. So I'm curious, how do you do this without becoming a nag as a teacher or even as a parent for parents? What do you think? Or do you feel yourself as a nag? Like what's your take?
So there's a lot behind the scenes in a Montessori classroom. For example, to an untrained eye, it might look very chaotic. There is no discipline or whatsoever, but in the background, there's a lot of guidelines the children has to follow, because from day one, what we're trying to make our children come to aware of is in order for a community to thrive, we have these very important guidelines that keep us safe. And it's through within the guidelines we can work and explore and experiment and have fun. But as a community, in order for us to move in the same direction, following these guidelines are very important. Again, bringing this concept of order, the importance of order for yourself from an internal perspective, and also order from a outside perspective as a community. So taking another step back, Jesse, as you know, elementary curriculum is called the cosmic education, right? So from a general sense, cosmic means the universe, the greater thing, the greatness of the universe and so forth. But from a Montessori perspective, if you look at the terminology, the etymology of cosmic, it's actually Greek, means cosmiko. It means the gradual discovery of order. So that's what we're doing in our Montessori classrooms, bringing this order to them and making them aware, the unifying of global, universal view of past, present, and future. So we tell these order and laws that governs our universe, that governs our planet, that governs our communities, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom. So children started to recognize without law, without order, there's only chaos.
The chaos. Yeah.
So with these guidelines, I give them just a reminder of the expectation of the classroom. So for example, when a child gets so excited, they lose control. Sometimes they misplace the materials, or they might use the materials in a way that is not safe.
Yeah.
But with my reminder, what I'm trying to let them realize is these materials are actually your teacher. They're helping you to unlock things that you didn't know that was possible. So we need to show gratitude and also remember we have to leave these materials the way it is, because next year and the year after that, they're going to be young friends coming by, and how would they feel if these materials are broken or chipped? And that's the message I usually send, and immediately it's just this reminder, yes, it's not just me anymore. I have to think about my whole community and children who are going to come way to this classroom.
So and I like that you're raising this kind of it's the global or universal perspective. And even the cosmic education, to parents out there that are normal parents, sometimes cosmic education, it sounds like, we're floating around in the stars or something. But the way you're putting it is that our universe, there's laws to the universe. Like if to put it as simple as possible, if I went off a building and just decided to walk off, a 100-story building, I'm going to fall and it's not going to be pleasant,
Exactly.
And at a smaller level, what you're saying is these children are not aware of things, like they're not thinking, you said the future, 3 years out of the way, who are going to be using these materials. So you're kind of helping them to see the broader integration and reality of things that affect them in the world. And I think I like that. So what you're saying is, this isn't we sit down with 4 8-year-olds and get philosophical about the deep, perspective of the universe, but through even saying, hey, when we put these materials in here, you're teaching something deeper, is what you're getting at.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I have to share this. It's funny because you said this, this chaos. When I used to teach 4th through 8th grade, this was more relatively traditional, but I used to teach these 5th graders. We would teach ancient civilizations. So we get into, political orders, but very, very, very basic,
Yes.
But I was trying to mix it up because, as you know, with traditional school, you're up there just lecturing normally. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have the children, we'll get together and we'll act out the different governments. So they had studied a bunch of governments like Egypt. They had studied Mesopotamia. Now they're in Greece. And so we had dictatorship. So it'd be one child up at the front and he was telling everybody what to do, that type of thing. And I said, okay, the next one that we have not talked about yet is anarchy. So, and I said, what I want you guys to do is in 30 seconds, you can do whatever you want to do. And they like Ruchira, they had no clue that this was coming. And I
Yep.
said, I'm telling you, in 20 seconds now, I'm going to step back. I know you guys are sitting. You could do whatever you want to do. This is going to be anarchy. They didn't know what anarchy meant, but I was trying to give them. And so I did this. And then I said, and I think it was like, you'll have 45 seconds of anarchy. I didn't know what to expect. All of a sudden, the kids got up. They're running around the classroom. Kids are throwing things.
Wow.
And I mean, this is stupid on my part, really stupid. But one of the kids puts a pencil, like, you know how young people like to put a pencil on a desk and then hit it and then it flies?
Yes.
You know that? So one child did that. It flew and almost, like, barely hit me in the eye with the pencil.
Oh, wow.
And it was total accident.
Right,
But
right.
what happened was the whole class just froze. And it was this shock that, like, what had almost happened was that I almost literally got injured by this.
Right.
So although I don't recommend this to any teachers, it was funny how after I gave them the definition of anarchy and we went through it, they had this vivid example. I mean, probably for the rest of their lives, because it was so nuts of what
Yep.
chaos really is, or what, what it seems like. I would say I like your approach much better, and I like the Montessori because this is not really the best way, but it reminded me of that, because what we do want to do is give children real experiences, and what you're doing, again, even with that, just that white cube, that small little cube, is things matter, things are important, and if we don't take care of things, I mean, things get chipped, and then things can get really, really bad when you don't, and you guys have animals in the classroom, right, too? So it's not just things.
That's right.
So maybe even saying that, I kind of got off topic there with that chaos, but but the animal, do you have the same kind of situation in terms of the care for the animal, or how does that occur in the classroom?
Yes, absolutely. So we have 5 classes of animals, and again, what we try to bring to the attention of the children is, end of the day, we took these animals from their natural habitat and we are creating something similar here. Therefore, we need to care for them. They're living, breathing creatures. They have a capacity to love. They're sensitive. So, and I also talk a little bit about what they bring us. They bring us joy. For example, we used to have a bearded dragon, and this bearded dragon loves to sit on a child's shoulder sometimes and just chill, And our friends, when they sometimes have a bad day, they would just pick her up and put in their shoulders and read a book, And for them, it's just healing and it's closure, something that sometimes another friend cannot provide. So there's this, again, close connection with nature, animals, and also it's giving us an opportunity to do in-depth research. So how do you recognize a female bearded dragon versus a male bearded dragon? So the children, they read books, they lift the back of the tail, they're like, I don't know, this is so cool. and they talk to each other. They go to the upper elementary friends and they ask, did you guys figure out whether our bearded dragon was a boy or a girl? And they're like, no, it changes from month to month, we still don't know. So they bring conversation.
Sure, this is like bearded dragon sex ed is what you're doing over there.
Pretty much, and in the most natural, in the most innocent sense, right?
Yes, yeah.
It brings communities together. It intrigues, interest and curiosity. It brings an opportunity to care for the difference between how to care for a bird versus how to care for a reptile, and so many things go with it.
And I mean, again, I just listened to you speak, and you're just such I'd say a gentle soul in a way. At least that's the way I think of it. I mean, you have strength. I don't mean it in some kind of like that, but you're just a gentle person. And just thinking of the child, you have the bearded dragon on the shoulder reading a book. What comes to my mind is the contrast of what I had in school. Not that it was horrible, but it's like the idea of me just sitting, deciding to read a book with a bearded dragon on my shoulder would just be so unheard of, but it sounds so lovely. And I wonder, I think this might be a good time, because I know I wanted to ask you about your journey, and just you struck me as somebody that has a somewhat of like a Zen-like quality, and even some of your colleagues came with, "Oh my God, Ruchira, if I could have this Zen quality." So, and I think it comes out in the way you speak, like just by using the bearded dragon example about how these animals offer us something that's really special.
Yes.
You know, I know you were not always like this, so I don't want to give away too much. But as we talked one night when I was, visiting, and we were at some party, and not a crazy party, but like having a drink, and we chatted about our past. Would you mind talking about some of your kind of transformation with Montessori and just how it's connected in your mind, if that makes sense?
Oh, absolutely, Jesse. So I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, in the Southeast Asia. And I was born in the 80s. And it was a time when there was a civil war going. And as a young child, I didn't know what it meant. But now that I look back with my Montessori philosophy and theory, I'm like, oh, wow, I've been absorbing this negativity, this depression, this energy wherever I went. So like I said, I was an actor. So with my parents, I used to travel a lot around the country. So from one village to the town to another town, and what I was absorbing was their fears, their challenges, their struggles, and then of course, as I was growing up in Sri Lanka, of course, the civil war didn't get any better for us, and the more I became older, the more I started getting a grasp of what this actually meant. And without even knowing, there was a lot of fear in me, and this fear converted into anger as a teenager. So I was trying to find ways to express myself. And again, as a teenager, you want to be rebellious. You want to stand out in a crowd. You always wanted to show who you are as an individual. So 90% of the time in my culture, I came across as the black sheep. I was always doing the wrong thing, and rather than being understood, I was punished for these actions. And my anger just grew. It just grew every day, and I was a very angry person. I was playing a lot of sports. Rugby was my outlet. And it became my therapy now looking back, because it gave me an opportunity to, get super rough and tackle people and get tackled and, breaking bones and all that.
It's, by the way, it's so, for those of you don't know Ruchira, you've probably not seen him. It's when he first said to me, I think you said something like, I was some big angry man. And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about, man? And then he said he played rugby. And I was like, rugby is like probably the toughest sport there is in terms of just physical combat. I don't know how you would explain it. So, but now, I think it makes sense what you're saying, to get that kind of, I played football in high school. And I think it was something similar. It's like you're getting that anger out, at least for some of us that might have had a little too much anger built up. So that was your situation. And then, do you think that solved it, or like what was going on there?
No, absolutely not. It was temporary. It was just a temporary outlet. Towards the end of my rugby career, I had a sports injury and I had to stop playing. So it was the peak of my rugby career. I was captaining for my school. I was playing for a local club, and I was invited to play for the country at the age of 19, which was a privilege. But all of that was taken away by just one tackle, which broke my knee. So immediately, I realized all this was just temporary, and I had to dig deeper. So what caused me from that experience was to leave Sri Lanka and truly ask myself, who am I? Why am I here? All these big philosophical questions.
Yeah. And Ruchira, I want to say that I'm raising this too, because I think your story is in line with kind of a lot of us that didn't have Montessori, or even didn't have a childhood that was developed, kind of people helping to deal with emotions, or to actually enjoy learning. You don't deal with a lot of the stuff. So your journey to me is a reminder of the importance of trying to do this so that we can find ourselves or understand ourselves better much earlier,
Exactly. Exactly,
So,
Jesse.
so anyway, sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to say
No,
that I think this is all very integrated with Montessori
yeah,
and early development. So,
absolutely. So at the age of 20, for the first time, I was in a brand new country, um, and trying to figure out how to pay bills, how to cook, how to wash clothes. The basic things was such a big challenge,
yeah, yeah,
and how I was educated was very different too. I was raised to memorize, 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 and then put something in an exam, and then pretty much forget about everything. So coming to the U.S. and going to college was not easy for me because I didn't have the discipline to do homework on a daily basis. I didn't have the discipline to finish my assignments in a timely manner. So I had to relearn all these things at the age of 20
yep,
while feeling like a big loser. And
yeah.
also at the same time trying to ask myself, what am I doing with myself?
Yeah.
So
And
this was,
I appreciate, I gotta say, by the way, I appreciate you sharing this. I didn't want to be like, hey, tell me all your bad stuff. But I mean, I think you're raising things that a lot of us felt in our late teens, early 20s. If we didn't actually know, this is exactly what I want to do with my life. I know exactly who I am. So I appreciate you kind of sharing this story.
Absolutely, Jessica. It's all these challenging experiences that really set the stage for me. And then after traveling around the world and more questions and more confusion, it all led to Montessori. And then just like that, one day it hit me. It really hit me because Montessori spoke to me in a way that I never experienced myself before. And my calling was very clear, clear as day.
Mhm.
So so I'm very grateful for all those experiences I went through as a child, as a teenager, and as a young adult, because all of that experiences have allowed me to find myself and also find a calling through Montessori. And every day I'm living the best life I can because I'm doing a service to myself and to the children and to the community because of
Yeah.
this beautiful methodology.
So, Ruchira, what you got to do so that this doesn't sound cultish to some people out there is you got to tell me. I like talking with you because we could just be straight. Is when you say
Yes.
you found Montessori, so it doesn't sound like, oh, I found Jesus and he was right there or something. Not that people got their thing, but
Right.
what was it about Montessori that kind of brought this all to the forefront? Like, wow, there's something profound here that I was missing, and yeah, what was it basically?
So one of the biggest things that happened to me was when I took my primary training. I took my primary training in San Diego, and Dr. Sylvia Dubois was my trainer. And one of the first things she talked about the transformation of the adult, and I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about. And the way she talked just resonated in my soul that in order to be a guide, in order to be a Montessori teacher, I have to recognize I have this ego right in front of me. Until I recognize I have an ego and I need to put my ego to the side and completely see myself as a servant in front of the child, I won't be able to do this work properly.
Mhm.
So for the next 9 months, through this training and through the work and being around passionate educators, it really helped me to dissolve some of these egocentric ideologies that I had with me because I always walked around thinking, oh, I am educated. I have traveled around the world. I know so much that nobody knows. So why should I be a servant in the presence of a child? It's actually an honor for this
Yeah.
child to be in front of me because I have all these things to bring to the table.
Yeah.
But Dr. Dubois was so kind and warm and loving and gentle to actually to melt my ego and see
Mhm.
it's actually working with children and seeing children as they are is actually giving an opportunity for me to tap into something that I forgot or something that I never had. So I was able to be around children again and connect a deeper side of me that I have almost forgot. So to me,
Yeah.
that's a very healing process And also it made my work more meaningful and fun because I'm sitting with them, I'm working with them, I'm laughing with them, and sometimes I'm actually learning with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
I think what resonates with me is that the thing that you said with definitely with Sylvia Dubovoy, is that she does have a way of bringing it back to you too. And it almost seems like you like relive some of your own kind of child to say like, what was I like as a child almost? So I think getting rid of, I mean, I don't normally put it as ego but I know where you're coming from. You're basically saying that arrogant part, that
yes,
part of you where you think I know everything at 20, you know? And it's like, where is that coming from, man? Like that's something. So I really appreciate kind of you raising that. You got to let go of some of I think there's a phoniness of it. So it's almost, because there's in one sense, and you had said it earlier, that this was a journey for yourself to learn and to improve yourself and to improve the children. So it's almost like you're getting rid of a part of yourself that you don't like anymore, or you don't think is really that helpful towards you or to the children.
absolutely, absolutely. And what 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 these training has done to me, primary, elementary, and the adolescent trainings that I've taken, they actually give you this unique opportunity to go back in time and reflect on your own upbringing.
Yeah.
So these trainings are transformational if you truly open and allow yourself to integrate this theory. It basically tells you, wow, there are so many unfair things happen to you, but this is your opportunity to let go of your fears, let go of those
Yeah.
beliefs, and truly start supporting our future, our children, our generation. They need to be guided because they're more connected to themselves than the average adult. So just allowing them to be and creating an environment where they feel safe and they can respond and work independently. I think that's one of the biggest things I do as an adult.
Yeah.
Create an environment for the children to work peacefully, harmoniously, and happily so that they can figure this out. They can solve problems.
Yeah.
They can learn to empathize. And just watching them helps me
Yeah.
to just be in awe and just be in absolute joy just to watch them taking care of themselves.
Yeah, as you said that, I thought because you're really emphasizing that I want to help them so that they can do it on their own. Like I don't know if you're like when you were saying that, but that's what really comes through. And I got to tell you, this guy Ruchira is not just talking the talk; he walks it. Because in your class, I want to share another story that I found. I wrote this thing down like as closely as possible when I was there because it was so by chance, but so wonderful. And I think it shows you've created an environment. It's not necessarily that you're always there telling children what to do. You create an environment in which children feel comfortable and they're working independently at times from you or oftentimes from you. So let me just give it instead of just talking about it. But so there was a girl, and I'm not going to go over the names because I know the names, but I don't want to throw them out there. But so she was maybe, I'd say 8 years old, walks up to another girl who's also probably about 8, and she says, do you know where the dictionary is? And so I'm looking at this, and I had seen where the dictionary was, but I was curious where this is all going to go. And the girl says, oh, I was using it. It's on table 1, but you can use it. So they're having this little dialogue, kind of sharing as you were talking about earlier. And then, so the girl who asked the question, then she goes to the table and starts flipping through, and I'm right by this table. She's flipping through this huge dictionary that you have. So you probably have, anyways, you got a massive dictionary. But there's another girl at that table. And this is a younger girl, I'd say probably around 7, who says, other girl's flipping through the dictionary. And she says, well, Olivia was using that. I'll just give a random name. But that's what she says. So she's kind of telling this girl, oh, no. You don't use that. Olivia was using that. Now, it wasn't mean, but she had basically said. So this girl looks up as she was looking at the dictionary and says, oh, she said I can use it. And then she went right back to looking up a word. So it was very casual, but they're having these interactions. The younger girl just said, okay. And she went back to her work. But what's so cool on top of all this is a few moments later, though, the younger girl says, well, what are you looking for? So now this younger girl is curious about what the older girl is doing with the dictionary. So the older girl says, oh, I'm looking for parasite. So that's the word, parasite. And then, when the girl's searching the dictionary, she stops on a page, and then the younger girl kind of points at a picture that she had stopped on, and she says, is that a parasite? And then the older girl, she chuckles a bit, and she said, no, that's a person. So the dictionary was upside down, so the younger girl couldn't really get a good glance of it.
Yeah.
And then maybe 30 seconds later or so, the older girl, she finds the word she's looking for. Again, it's parasite. And then, kind of like us sometimes, if we're in a dictionary or we might read out loud a little bit to ourselves. So she's reading out loud the dictionary, and, I can hear it. The younger girl can hear it a little bit. And she's like, a parasite is a noun. And she's going through the definition. She's reading it out loud to herself, right?
Yes.
Now, here's the big conclusion, because I know I'm talking a lot here, but it must have been like 10 minutes later. So I happened to see the younger girl. She walks by Olivia, who's that girl from way back originally. And she says, did you know that a parasite is a noun? And she starts to tell her this whole definition of a parasite. So I just found it so beautiful. It's just a random interaction in the room that occurred, but you just get this natural and organic interaction between children, and you've created an environment that's peaceful. People can interact with each other. You're allowed to tell people, oh no, you can use that. Like you have the autonomy in this classroom to make decisions throughout. And I just found like the younger girl learning from the older girl. There's just so much packed in there. But I wanted to share that story with you, tell you what I saw. I don't know what jumps out to you, but I thought it was an important one, or a really meaningful one for me. So.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely spot on. That's the beauty of these environments, because we have 3-year age groups combined. They work with each other so closely. So a younger friend can actually learn so much from a third grader, because they're age-wise so close to each other, and these older friends have a way of just guiding these younger children in a loving, patient, kind, this big sister, this big brother mentality, and these younger children respond so much purer and efficiently and kindly and gently to these lessons versus an adult. So I do give key lessons and the important concepts, but most of the time I have given an opportunity for my older friends to go back and give these early lessons, because for them, it's a humble reminder. 3 years ago, I was this first grader, trying to figure out, these lessons, trying to figure out how this classroom works. So that's a very humbling experience. And also, if you can explain a concept, if you can show step-by-step processes, that means you have mastered that concept as well. So in another way of looking at this, it's giving these children to master these lessons. They already know in their head, but some of them are like, wow, I know everything, but for me to explain that to that friend was very challenging. So there's this level of skills you need to have in order to verbalize it, simplify it, at the same time be direct. So they learn from each other, and that's why our mixed age groups are so powerful. And when we also give lessons, I try to combine the first, the seconds, and the thirds, because they can all learn from each other.
Yeah. And I what's remarkable, you saying that too, in terms of the children teaching each other, and the environment kind of being on its own in a way, even without you. Like, you've given those key lessons, but you can step away and the children can take over. And I think because when I was at your school, I gave a talk, and I think you came out to the talk to watch it. But I observed after the talk in your class, which means that you, the head teacher, had been out of the class for over an hour. And when I came in there, it was completely peaceful. So, I mean, I'm kind of like just touting you in a way and putting you up on a pedestal, but I mean, it really was impressive. So again,
Again,
very, very cool.
it's not me. It's the Montessori. It's what Dr. Maria Montessori and Maria Montessori have created. And it's believing in the children, and when they know the adult believe in them, and when you raise the bar really high, they want to raise. They want to raise
Yep.
to that level. So every day I remind them how brilliant they are, how unique they are, how amazing they're. So I just give them affirmations because they need to hear that, even though they know they're the most unique beings. But hearing from an adult and taking a step back, allowing them to explore, experiment, and learn from their mistakes, I mean, it gives them a level of courage and ownership to the classroom. Something I always tell them is, children, this is your second home. I am just a visitor who has a lot of life experiences and
Yes.
and some lessons to give you. But beyond that, this is yours. Taking care of yourselves, taking care of the materials, taking
Yeah.
care of the plants, the animals. This is your home. This is your second home. So take care of it. So I always
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to take a step and come out of their comfort zone and work collaboratively with each other.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely working. And what struck me in the classroom as something that kind of related to what you just said is that you can step back. They're in the classroom basically working on their own, but they come up to you when they need aid. So they feel comfortable. And I mean, imagine children at this age. I mean, and then as they get older, a lot of parents can find it that children no longer want to come to them, or teachers, oh, I don't want to go up to my teacher. He's just going to go on and on about something stupid, or just, I don't want to hear it.
Right.
And I think in this classroom, you've created an environment in which, as you said, you're kind of this visitor. But man, if there was a visitor near my place that I knew had traveled all over the world or had all this information that I don't know of, I'd be excited to ask him questions or ask her questions. So
Right.
what you've created is an environment in which they actually feel comfortable and want to learn from you, versus old school traditional is like, all I want to do is get out to recess.
Right.
I don't want to hear any more from this guy or this girl. So it is definitely working. So again, props to you for what I saw. And
Thank you, Jesse.
and yeah, and then I mean, closing up here, because this went a little bit long, but hopefully the others appreciate it too, because I'm enjoying it. Is there anything you want to tell the world, or anything in addition to this, or?
I just love Montessori because it's a unique opportunity for our children to be who they are and constantly work on themselves and just live according to their joy and their satisfaction and whatever their soul is driving them to do. And in my last 10 years, that's what I've been observing every day. When they come to the classroom, they just cannot wait to get to the work. They just cannot wait to finish their projects. They just cannot wait to make snack. They love pulling out the instruments and singing and doing yoga and rapping to a math problem they just did. There's so much creativity, there's so much optimism, there's so much joy, there's so much exploration happening. So being in an environment like that through and through reminds me, there's a bigger lesson we, the adult, must take with this, because, along the way, most of us forget who we are and what we are passionate about, what we truly used to care for. And we just sit in our ways and we get into these routines and become mundane. But in these Montessori classrooms, it's very evident their soul is rejoicing. There's life,
Yes.
there's love, there's energy. And that's what this is about. we want to create a peaceful world, not just for humanity, but for everything around us. We're part of it. There's this interrelatedness, from a plant to an earthworm to a human being to the cosmos. We're all connected. So there's a powerful message these children are showing us every day. So as adults, if we can stop for a second and observe our children, it doesn't have to be in a classroom, it could be in a park, it could be at home. Just watch how much they immerse in that moment. I think there's a big lesson for us as adults. And if we can continue to do the work we do and create peace around the world, I think, that's my greatest joy, to watch humankind continue to be kind to each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to hear you talk about the classroom in this way. And I think you're right. In one way, it's a small microcosm of what we'd like to see more broadly in the world. And it's not to say there isn't conflict, because, we'll see conflict. But the reality is, even that, there becomes an excitement to, well, how do we figure this out? As opposed to, let me get 5 of my other friends to say how wrong this guy or this girl is. There's a genuine excitement even to figure out ways to solve problems. And then again, as I'll just reiterate what Ruchira said, if you're out there, just take a moment to stop, because you're so right, Ruchira. And even if you don't even have your kid in a Montessori school, even if you're not a Montessori teacher, go visit one and just sit in there. Because if you find a good one, like what I was sitting in Ruchira's, it really is that peaceful kind of soul rising experience. So I can't agree more, to just take a moment and step back and actually observe children. And when you can find a peaceful, situation like this, man, run to it and get in there and then calm down. And I'll tell you, Ruchira, you're funny, because you talked about always improving. These kids are always improving. They're kind of doing it almost unconsciously still. They don't realize, I'm developing my soul at, 3rd grade. But for us, I think, just to end here with you, is I want to just send a big thanks, because I tend to be a little bit more boisterous, and I appreciate your calm. And it's one of those things for me to always be growing, that I want to get more calm, even in the way I might come across to others. I feel very calm inside, but I think sometimes I can, movements with the hands just a little bit much. And you have a very peaceful Zen element about you that others can't see right now, because we're looking at each other, but I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. It's been fun, and I enjoy what I do. And again, thank you for what you do. What you're doing is amazing. You're spreading the good word, all the hard work we do in our classrooms, and all the joy and the magic we see. You have become a voice, and I appreciate what you do as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, here we go. We're thanking each other like crazy.
It's a good thing.
I like that. Cool. Well, it's been great talking, and I'm sure we will talk soon again, and hopefully see each other sometime soon in the future. So
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Well, I really enjoyed talking with Ruchira, and I'm hoping it helped shed some light on Montessori education for you, or offered a bit of inspiration for those who are already very familiar with the approach. And wild enough, this conversation of ours took place only a week or so before COVID basically changed our society forever. And as challenging as some things have gotten, no doubt, since then in the world, I think there is a huge bright spot for all of us, because so many more parents are now seeking alternatives to traditional schooling. And they're asking themselves the very tough question of, what should I do with my child? Now, I think the answer to that ultimately comes down to how each of us thinks about education, really about children. As Maria Montessori once put the choice, quote, "To consider the school as the place where instruction is given is one point of view, but to consider the school as a preparation for life is another," end of quote. I hope listening to Ruchira speak about his work with children has given you a sense of what that abstract preparation for life really looks like in practice in Montessori. And with that in mind, if you're relatively new to the approach and interested in learning more, I'd say visit montessorieducation.com. To start, there's a popular video there dedicated to answering the question, what is Montessori? Now, for the rest of you out there, maybe you gung-ho Montessorians, please just join me in continuing to share the Montessori Kool-Aid with anyone who is curious. Also, as I noted at the opening, this month is special, as August 31, 2020 marks the 150th birthday of Maria Montessori. So I just want to close with an enormous thank you to the woman who has helped bring so much to my own life, and no doubt to countless others, young and old, and all around the world. So here is to Maria Montessori, and to the heart of what she taught all her life. And I would say that is to take a closer look at the child in front of us, and also inside of us. So cheers, everyone, and adios until next time.